Hi, Stories Channel here.
Today, we're going to cover a 2017 thriller action film called Like, Follow, Share. The first scene opens up with a guy, Garrett Hoffman, recording a YouTube video. There's a run-through of Garrett's videos and live-stream gaming events over some time. The run-through ends with a series of videos ending with Like, Share, Follow. Hoffman releases a video to commemorate followers on his page, Hoffman's Head. He thanks them for the love and for supporting him so far. He introduces his two friends, Lyle and Kiki. He says they're the real ones behind the videos. In the next scene, Garrett goes to the post office to pick up his deliveries from his postal box. He meets Shell, the attendant, and they strike up a conversation. Shell says she's been trying to wrap her head around what exactly Garrett does because of the varied nature and large amount of packages Garrett gets. He asks her to guess and she says she thinks he runs a psychiatric home. Garrett laughs and tells her he's a YouTuber and owns Hoffman's Head. Shell is reading a book on fluid hydrodynamics. Garrett pretends to know about fluid hydrodynamics. Shell laughs at that as she knows he's obviously lying and flirting with her. Garrett gives Shell his phone number. He comes back and tells her to keep it personal. In this scene, Garrett is at his dad's bookstore. He and his dad have a misunderstanding about his future. His dad wants him to pick up a teaching career as a fallback to his YouTube career. Garrett tries to explain to his dad that this is what he wants to do for life. Garrett gives his dad a check. Next, Garrett has a live stream gaming event. He speaks of his existential issues, asking his fans about their take on life after YouTube, with his fans showing support. A fangirl, comes online and talks in a suggestive way as she expresses her lust for him and desires to meet him. Shell texts Garrett to tell him she has been watching the live stream too. Shell and Garrett are on a date. They discuss random stuff. Garrett gets an idea for a live discussion. Shell and Garrett go to Garrett's house. Shell asks Garrett's standpoint on all the girls who like him, especially Fangirl. Garrett asks if she can cope with it all if they get involved with each other. Shell and Garrett end up getting closer. Garrett wakes up the next morning with Shell in bed with him. She reveals to him that she's Fangirl. Garrett is shocked as she opens up to him about leaving all she had just to be with Garrett. Garrett tells her to go away as his friends come over. Shell leaves the house. Garrett's friend, Lyle, talks about the incident. Shell is in her car recording a voicemail for Garrett. She speaks of how she was about to end her life but found hope in Garrett's videos, how she loves him and feels he loved her last night. Garrett listens to the voicemail at home. He makes an attempt to delete it but eventually changes his mind. Lyle is at a stand-up bar doing stand-up comedy. He goes to join Garrett and Kiki, who are also there. Shell is also there, hidden as she's stalking Garrett. Garrett goes to the bathroom with a random girl he meets at the bar. She wants to make out but Garrett shrugs it off. She feels nauseated because she's drunk. Garrett says he'll take her home. Garrett is in the random girl's bathroom. He holds her hair to take care of her. He leaves her house and heads home. Shell is stalking him outside the girl's house. Garrett goes home and starts to call Shell but changes his mind. Garrett is playing a live game at home. Kiki surprises him. Detective Yarden comes to see Garrett at his house. He asks questions about his activities the night before. The random girl was eliminated. The detective thinks it was a theft case. Garrett names Kiki as his alibi. Shell keeps texting Garrett. Shell calls Lyle. They meet up at Lyle's house. Lyle pours drinks for both of them. Shell mixes some substance with Lyle's drink when he's away cleaning up his bathroom. Lyle is sedated. Shell takes his keys. Shell duplicates Lyle's keys. Garrett is outside creating a new video with Lyle and Kiki. Lyle is evasive about the previous night's events. Garrett sees Shell's text again. He talks with Kiki. Shell is at Garrett's house. She's copying all Garrett's files from his PC. Garrett calls Shell. She picks up and Garrett apologizes for ignoring her texts. He tells her about the expired girl. He apologizes for overreacting and says he wants them to try again. He cuts the call so he can take selfies with some fans. Shell lays in Garrett's bed. Garrett comes home. He sits to eat at his workstation. He places a call through to Shell. He hears the phone ring and hears Shell's phone ringing in the house. He traces the sound to the bathroom and finds Shell unclad in the bathtub. Garrett freaks out. Shell comes out of the bathroom dressed. They argue over the incident and Shell freaks out. Shell attempts to push Garrett and instead gets cut. Garrett wants to take her to the hospital but Shell persuades him not to so as not to implicate him. Shell cleans up and comes out changed into a new dress and has her arm wrapped in a cloth. They talk briefly. Shell tells Garrett she truly loves him. Shell suggests they take sodas as a parting gift. Garrett wakes up unclad in his bed. Shell leaves a note that she's out to get donuts. Detective Yarden comes over to Garrett's house and they discuss the recent incidents. He tells Garrett that it all sounds like a domestic misunderstanding before giving him an example of how bad things can escalate. He advises Garrett to stay off the internet for a while. Garrett deletes Shell's texts. Shell makes multiple attempts at talking to Garrett through emails, Facebook texts and SMS. Garrett changes his phone number and Shell does too. Shell uses different accounts to text Garrett, but he keeps blocking her online. Shell is alone in her room, frustrated with her laptop backlight flashing on her face. Garrett is at home having another live gaming session. Shell logs into the session using an account, Real Girl. She begins talking to Garrett about past events, but Garrett blocks her off. Garrett's fans ask what's wrong. Shell takes to YouTube to speak to Garrett. She apologizes and begs him to let them try again. YouTube trolls pick up on the video and make multiple parodies, comment videos, video game animations and skits. Garrett goes over Shell's YouTube video. Shell releases more videos. Garrett goes over the videos. Garrett picks up Dave Yarden's card. Detective Yarden goes over to see Shell at home to explain to her that Garrett doesn't want her. She tells him that Garrett begged her for months to be with him. She shows him proof of emails on her laptop. Detective Yarden shows Garrett the emails at his house. Garrett says he never sent any emails, and while explaining he has notifications on social media to check something viral that has been leaked. Detective Yarden tells him to stay away from Shell. Garrett checks his notifications. He sees that Shell has released a private tape of both of them. Garrett is at his house talking with Kiki and Lyle about the leak. Lyle tells him he's become more famous because of it. Kiki tells him to quit it all. Garrett says he can't because he now has 2 million followers. Kiki walks away in anger. Lyle cusses out. Garrett asks him for personal space. Garrett releases a YouTube video concerning the whole incident. He begs people to stop making fun of Fangirl as she's mentally ill and needs medication. He means it in a serious way. Shell watches Garrett's video. She replays over and over the part where he calls her mentally ill and in need of medication. Shell's freak out and throw a tantrum in her apartment. Garrett sees 2 texts from Shell. Garrett has a nightmare involving Shell. He wakes up into another nightmare involving Shell. He's woken up to reality by a phone call. Garrett exclaims at the information he receives. Garrett runs to a place fended off with police tape. His dad's bookstore has been burned up. Garrett sits against a wall. His dad comes over to meet him. He apologizes to his dad for the fire. He explains to his dad how it might be a fan of his who caused this. He says that his fans know everything about him. Garrett says he'll handle it. Garrett goes to Shell's house. He knocks and shouts for Shell, but no one answers. He breaks down the door with his shoulder. He sees the words, "Like, share, follow," written with lipstick on her window. Shell meets up with a black market dealer. She buys a conspicuously wrapped package. Garrett drives home and is surprised by Detective Yarden outside his house. He tells Yarden that she's gone. Yarden tells him that he's in trouble for breaking and entering. He says she is a minor and shows Garrett what he was able to find out about her. He tells Garrett how Shell has a habit of eliminating anyone in the path of her desires and that she finished off the random girl at the club. He opens Garrett's door and gets shot in the neck by an arrow from a trap crossbow. Garrett calls emergency services. Garrett is at the police station. He is told to sign some papers by a policewoman. She tells him to talk to someone. She inquires if he's sure his new location is unknown by people. He says it's his friend's uncle's place in the middle of nowhere. She assures him that they'll find her and that they have a reward and tip line set up. Garrett leaves the policewoman and meets Kiki still at the police station. She tells him to come to stay with her family, but he tells her he'll put her in danger. Kiki hands over the keys to Garrett. Shell drives to and books a motel. When questioned for ID, she exposes some of herself and the attendant lets her through. Shell goes to her room and tries locating Garrett's phone. She also tries logging into Garrett's accounts to no avail as they've been deleted. Lyle drives Garrett to his uncle's place as they hear about the incident on the radio. Garrett turns off the radio. Lyle and Garrett arrive at his uncle's place. Garrett finds some string to form a security system. Garrett and Lyle build and test the security system. Shell watches Garrett's videos in her hotel room. Garrett is cooking. Lyle wants them to go online anonymously using his uncle's account. Garrett refuses and says he's taking this time to get to know himself off the internet. Lyle confesses to going out with Shell. Garrett stops cooking. He looks disappointed. Lyle says that's how Shell probably got Garrett's keys. Garrett tells him it's not his fault. Lyle says he's always been jealous of Garrett his whole life. They have a friendly handshake. Shell continues watching Garrett's videos at her place. She watches their old Slapsies World Championship video on YouTube. In the video, Kiki asks where Garrett would go if there's a zombie apocalypse. Garrett says he would go to Lyle's Uncle Ray's place in the middle of nowhere. Shell rewinds the video so she can get the description of the place. Shell leaves the hotel room. Garrett is in the woods. He looks to make sure no one is around. He begins recording a video. He speaks of Shell not being found yet after a week and says he can't live without YouTube. He also talks of the fact that he's learned that opening up yourself to the world can be bad and how his life has changed forever and he may not be able to go back to his former life. He promises to keep posting Hoffman's head videos even though they may not know his whereabouts. Lyle barges in on him and surprises him. Garrett throws away his phone in shock. He says he was making a video. Garrett is back at Uncle Ray's place with Lyle. He uploads his recent video and is live streaming. His fans are elated. Someone asks him where he is. They ask about the whole incident. Garrett says he'll talk about it when he can process it all. Garrett begins a live gaming event. His fans notify him that Fangirl has uploaded a new video. In the video, she says she knows where Garrett is. She says her life is over and she feels lonely, so if they can't be united in life, they'll be united in death. The security system bells jingle in the house. Garrett goes to the window to check out what's up. His fans ask what's going on. Lyle tries to douse their fears. Garrett sees Shell outside the house. He tries calling but there's no service. Garrett tells the fans to call 911 and tries describing the address to them. Shell smashes up the electricity system and eventually takes out the power. The live stream stops. The fans ask what happened. Garrett and Lyle find a lamp and something for security. Lyle wants to go to the car. Garrett says they shouldn't. Lyle tries to trick Garrett by suggesting a fake plan. Garrett tells him that he wants to leave him. Lyle says Shell loves Garrett, not him, and runs out to the car. Lyle tries starting the car to no avail. He comes out and crouches next to the car door crying. Shell walks past him. Lyle runs away into the dark. Garrett moves about the house with a torchlight. He hears glass break and sees fire. He gets the fire extinguisher and tries to put out the fire. Shell comes from behind and tries to attack him with an axe. A fight ensues and Shell tries to strangle Garrett with a cord. Garrett pushes her off. Shell breaks a bottle on his head. She lunges for a knife but Garrett catches her arm and breaks it. Shell asks Garrett why he couldn't just love her. He asks why she couldn't just let him go. Shell says that's not love and attacks Garrett with the knife. Garrett reaches for a fire poker and slices through Shell's head with it. Shell falls down and wants to reach out to Garrett. A fan of Garrett drives to Uncle Ray's house the next morning and finds Garrett injured and Shell eliminated. She takes Garrett into her car. She engages Garrett in discussions. Lyle is in a car and passes the fan's car on the road.